Hello everyone, it's Lucy here and welcome to the Education Boutique kind of channel where we're really looking at school-led tutoring at the moment. So I want to jump on today and again, like yesterday, do another little session on school-led tutoring, but this time with a focus on the new April 2020 guidance that was released by the DfE. So this particular video is going to be really useful for school business managers, teachers, head teachers, deputies, assistant principals, just anyone who's going to be looking at developing or utilising this budget within their school. So my name's Lucy, I'm the Director of Tutoring at Education Boutique, part of the eTeach group, and I'm also the Vice President of the Tutors Association as well. So what we're going to do is a really quick look through some of the guidance about school-led tutoring. So I'm going to try and keep this really short and sharp and snappy, but just to give you the kind of key updates based on the new guidance that was released earlier this month by the DfE. So obviously the school-led tutoring grant is the way that the NTP is moving forward into the 2022 to 2023 academic year. This year, for the remainder of this year, and that includes the school holidays, that's the big sort of kind of one of the big changes that's been released recently. Until the end of this year, the school-led tutoring grant funds 75% of the tutoring, and then moving into next academic year, that drops down to 60% of the tutoring, the total cost of tuition. So just a reminder, and all the little things that you're going to see on the screen here are all directly from the DfE guidance as well. So I've just kind of picked out the most important bits. So all state-funded schools are eligible with any children that are eligible for pupil premium mean that school will receive a budget based on 60% of those pupil premium children. In terms of a bit of an overview, it's to support disadvantaged pupils to catch up after COVID. But the interesting thing with school-led tutoring is that the school is totally in control. And that means that if you, as a sort of a leader in a school, think that there is a pupil who doesn't fall under one of those sort of brackets of students, such as disadvantaged, looked after, pupil premium, but you feel that there is a real need for them to access tuition, that is totally up to you and you can totally do that. It gives schools the total flexibility and the authority to make those decisions that best support the students in their school. In terms of accessing, obviously the funding is paid, as I said yesterday in my video, at 3 different points throughout the year. There's no opt-in, so this money has been paid to schools and will have to be paid back if not utilised. It's ring-fenced, it can only be used for school-led tutoring, but it also cannot be used to subsidise some of the other types of tutoring, such as the NTP partners route and the academic mentors route, where there are contributions as well. So it has to be utilised for specific school-led tutoring sort of blocks of tuition. So talking about eligibility, primary, secondary schools, anyone with students from year 1 up to year 11, that means that your school will receive a budget. If there was a school, I can't really think that there ever would be one, where you had no pupil premium children on roll in your school, then yes, you would receive no budget. But any state maintained school, trust, academy, even actually independent schools, specialist settings, independent settings, where a local authority place is funded for a student, that would also start to, that would mean that those schools were also eligible to receive some of this school-led tutoring funding. Pupil referral units, anyone who has students that are eligible for pupil premium on roll will mean that you will have a budget. This is not something that can be used for children in year 12 and year 13. So we have had a lot of comments and things and direct messages from yesterday saying, but I've been asked by a school to support year 12 as part of school-led tutoring. Unfortunately, that won't be something that the school will be able to draw down this particular branch of funding for, but you can obviously go into the education recovery, as you can see just here, pop over to the education recovery section of the DfE website to see any resources and funding that are specific to that age of student. In terms of kind of putting together your tutoring program. The most important things that have changed with this new guidance is that there are a few sort of stipulations from previous kind of months, which have now sort of just slightly eased. So that one of the common misconceptions that I find when speaking to schools is that because the NTP partners route did have a sort of an eligibility in terms of there had to be a percentage of disadvantaged pupils accessing the tutoring. It's important to stress that that is not the same for school-led tutoring. Schools have the total autonomy over which students they want to put forward, and it doesn't need to be a certain percentage of those pupil premium children. Obviously, it is meant to be supporting disadvantaged pupils to catch up. So it would need to be done with a rationale of why anyone who wasn't like pupil premium was sort of best suited to receive this tutoring. But the autonomy is, schools have full autonomy over who they select to access this. In terms of the other thing that has slightly sort of eased is the group sizes. Now, as you can see here as well, tuition is most beneficial when it's explicitly linked to the classroom teaching and when the tutoring is done in small groups. Now, that being said, initially 1 to 3 was the sort of prescribed and suggested method of tuition being delivered, but that has now eased, and in the new April guidance, the DfE does say that it's up to the school and suggests that up to 1 to 6 is also possible to be utilised under the funding. So this is really important when we're sort of working with schools or when schools are sitting down to think about how they're best going to put these programs in place. Definitely thinking about what the content is, the groupings of the students, the sort of the best ways that you can put together those groups to make sure that the learning outcomes are achieved, but as many pupils can access the learning as possible. Really important, that we think about sort of why we're doing these. Is it something to help the school action plan? Is it sort of English, maths? And then looking at the best personnel within your school or an outsourced sort of provider would be able to source for you to best meet the needs of those students. So then we're going to talk about the personnel. So you might like to use your own teachers. Now, a lot of people are a bit confused when I start talking to them about how they can utilise their own staff. It's really important for me to stress again that my motivation is that every school out there utilises their full budget. I do not care. Yes, of course, you can come to us at Education Boutique or many of the other outsourced providers that there are out there, and we would love to support you. But we also know that for certain students, utilising your internal staff may just make them a little bit more comfortable, early on. And the most important thing is that we're carefully matching the skills of the teachers, the tutors, with the needs of the students to get the best outcomes. And that's what this funding is there for. So most important thing is that if you want to utilise your teachers, it cannot be done within their sort of contracted hours, and it cannot and should not affect their PPA time. This will mean that unless you have sort of 0.678 contracted teachers, it's probably quite unusual that schools find that they're able to actually use their teaching staff to put together a programme of tuition such as this. So then you might look at other people. You might look at, oh, where's it gone? Sorry. Yes, you might, just at the bottom of this one, sorry, I thought it was a separate one. Teachers without QTS, they have to do a tutoring training, before they can actually sort of take part in the tutoring. That is the same for any teaching assistants, any unqualified teachers who might be working in the school, and also if you have any ITT students who are there on placements from university, you'll have to have a discussion with the university as to whether it's something that they're happy to allow that student and that ITT to do. It can be a really great way for some really sort of useful and very focused learning in terms of a trainee teacher in intervention interventions and, you know, special educational needs development. So that's a really great other thing that you might like to look at as well. But bearing in mind that anyone who has been teaching without, or who does not have QTS, or has been teaching for under 2 years, will have to do a short training course. So in terms of group sizing, as I touched on before, 1 to 3 up to a maximum of 1 to 6. And the most important thing is that when you're doing that, you really are making sure that it's very important that the matching is done well. And so the groups are carefully created. That's really, really important. And finally, the most important one, the biggest thing, is that tuition can take place over the summer holidays. Summer holidays are a really, really important time. And before, it was going to be that the school business managers would have to do their end of year statement before the end of the school year. That has now changed in this most recent piece of information from the DfE, and they have now said that what you're able to do is utilise the funding throughout the summer holidays and completing the end of year statement in September 2022. So that's going to be really, really useful for a lot of school business managers, a lot of teachers who are in charge of putting this in place in their school. It means that you're going to have the guidance will be available from about June 22, and we're also going to be putting a lot of information and guidance out there as to how, that final end of year statement about how many hours of tutoring your school has actually utilised is put together. But it does mean that you've got the whole summer to put together some really exciting programmes of learning under school-led tutoring as well. Well, if anyone has any questions, I've just checked in the comments. Let me just see. Hello, everybody who's watching. Thanks so much for joining us. It's not something that I expected many people to jump onto. I actually had a little bit of time today and just decided I'd do another one of these just to keep the momentum going, get school-led tutoring talked about as much as possible as we move into this last term of the academic year. We know it's a time that people are thinking about next year, what they're using their budgets for, and also what's going to be happening over the summer. So thanks so much, and if you have any questions, do feel free to pop them below and I'll be very happy to get back in contact. Thanks so much, guys. Bye.